Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I think we're good. They came to order. There's one person still talking, and I'm going to have to call him out by name. I won't do that. Good afternoon. Welcome to Lunch with Books. My name is Sean. If you have a cell phone, this would be the time to silence it, please. If you're not on our email list and would like to be, the box is over there. The new Upper Ohio Valley Historical Review, there are only 5 left in print. They're upstairs at CERC. I had added a program. Remember the gentleman, Gregory Geikus, who was here with his Titanic model? Well, he's made a very large model of the Enola Gay. So he's going to speak on the August 6th, which happens to be the 80th anniversary of that fateful day that the Enola Gay dropped a bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. And so that's in your brochures. Now, the new People's University Zoology Large Mammals is ready. If one of the sheets is to sign up just for the courses, so I know how many to expect. The other one is for the field trip. Please take that very seriously because it costs us money. We're going to go to the Pittsburgh Zoo and see a feeding either of elephants or gorillas and learn about animals firsthand. So you have to provide your own transportation. We cannot drive you, but you meet us there and you get in free and you get all the benefits of the trip. So I only have room for 20 people, so sign up. But if you can't go, please step aside and let someone else take the place. All right. Next week on the 15th, Enchanted Ground, the Spirit Room of Jonathan Coons. Sharon Hatfield, this is from Ohio University Press, and it's about a 19th century religious movement, spiritualism, and this guy, Coons, was a medium, and he would have people to his house, and all these strange things would happen. Very interesting. And on the 22nd, A History of Sandscrest with Nora Edinger and Cheryl Harshman. So that'll be July 22nd. Okay, today my job is easy because I will introduce the organizer and curator of the Wheeling Poetry Series, and his name is Mark Harshman. Here he is. Come on up, Mark.
Thanks, Sean. As always, it's a pleasure to be here. Can't thank Sean enough. What goes on here at the Ohio County Public Library is, I don't think any other library in the state equals what happens here. So thanks to Sean and the entire staff. He has excellent help. And this poetry series is also the equal of many a fine university's reading series, and I'm just happy to be a small part of it. You see enough of me, but I will mention, I think it's August 19th that I'll be launching my new book from WVU Press here at Lunch with Books noon that day. So if that interests you, you can put it on your calendar. So on to today's events. What a pleasure to introduce 2 friends. And we're going to start with C.J. Farnsworth from right here in Wheeling. C.J. holds an MFA from Vermont College. Her poems have appeared in I-70 Review, Backbone Mountain Review, Appalachian Review, Kenning, Kestrel, Rattle, Women Speak, Impost, and others. She's a Pushcart Prize nominee, no small accomplishment. And her first poetry collection, If You Keep Making That Shame Face, is available from Sheila Nagig, who is a press that's doing increasingly fine work here in recent years. It's a very impressive bio. She has a poem called Whiskey and Worms that I think may be in your program, I'm not sure, but it begins, I'm up to here with stars, I tell you. How it really started was a cheap shot of dark and climbing from one escape to another. I don't know, makes me want to read and read and read. I really start a cheap shot of dark and climbing from one escape to another. Please, a warm welcome for CJ.
Thank you, Mark, for that lovely introduction and for having me, and for making this space for poetry. It's an important space. So as Mark mentioned, I have a first collection of poems out. I'm going to read from a few poems from the collection today and hopefully have time to share a few others with you as well. One of the things that I've noticed about the collection now that I've had a little bit of time to kind of sit with it is that I think it's very much a coming of age collection in verse. There are many poems in the collection that are voice poems. And so there are voices of girls coming through, I think, at various ages and stages. And the other thing I noticed is that the poems seem to speak a great deal to the voices of writers who were very influential to me and significant to me for one reason or another throughout my childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, and so on. So as I read the poems today, I'm going to introduce each of the poems with a brief excerpt from a writer whose voice I hear in the voice of the poems in my collection. And we'll see if maybe you might be able to even identify some of the authors of those excerpts. I'm going to leave the names out. We'll see how that goes. So the first piece is called 11. What they don't understand about birthdays and what they never tell you is that when you're 11, you're also 10 and 9 and 8 and 7 and 6 and 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. And when you wake up on your 11th birthday, you expect to feel 11, but you don't. You open your eyes and everything's just like yesterday, only it's today, and you don't feel 11 at all. You feel like you're still 10, and you are, underneath the year that makes you 11. Because the way you grow old is kind of like an onion, or like the rings inside a tree trunk, or like my little wooden dolls that fit one inside the other each year inside the next one. That's how being 11 years old is. Anybody hazard a guess at the author of that piece? Anyone know? What is it? That's an excerpt from Sandra Cisneros. And this piece from my collection is called Soul Train. One of the earliest memories I have of watching television is catching episodes of Soul Train. Yeah, and then I think Solid Gold came after that. So I don't know if there are any other Gen Xers in the room. Television was our babysitter, right? Or maybe some groovy boomers here too. Soul Train. Who am I so small to wear big earrings? Bigger than my ears, bigger than my stomach, bigger than my birthday. When June comes, I'll 1. Eat all the letters until I'm fat-brained. 2. Play Uncle Bub's harmonica until my lips can ride a huffy into town alone. 3. Buy up all the magazines with things that don't belong and hidden objects, which usually include an earring small in clouds or bushes. 4. Cut out the moon and paste it on my blue pages and shape up silver hoops from oven wrap and dress up the moon like a rich lady who goes to Mozart music with red chairs where there are naked statues of gold women that I can't help staring at. Statue women who wear all the big earrings they want with their hair piled high and heavy loops or swimming down their backs wearing just earrings and nothing else, so no one even notices the earrings or notices nothing but the earrings. P.S. Ears are the best parts to decorate, better than fingers or necks or even ankles, and I tried ankles with an angel on a gold chain that pierced the spine of my ankle, so I broke it off and put it in the ash at the bottom of the burn barrel to see how long it would last. to see if angels are real. P.P.S. Maybe in June I'll also, 5, practice singing until everyone who goes by my house says, there lives a girl who is like a bushel light, and one day, she is going to dance into our living room singing, probably wearing the biggest earrings we've ever seen, probably bigger than a tambourine or the TV or that old picture of gold angels hanging over the TV. Probably her voice will make us feel like we're standing on the edge of a waterfall preparing to jump. Or even better, like we did, and as we splash into a disco ball, we turn gold, and just as we pop up to take a breath, 2 big birds of paradise fly close enough to brush our cheeks. Any of you locals may also recognize a little shout out to our Capitol Music Hall. In that piece, that kind of memory I have of going to the Capitol as a small girl, and how it sort of made me aware of other worlds, kind of like Soul Train and Solid Gold, that there were other worlds and people out there, and thinking about, wow, how could I get to that world? Okay, so this piece, I think you may be able to call out its author. It's easy to invent a life. God does it every day. Creation, but a gamble of his authority. It's easy to efface it. The thrifty deity could scarce afford eternity to spontaneity. The perished patterns murmur, but his perturbless plan proceed, inserting here a sun, there leaving out a man. Anyone know who the author of that poem? Hazard a guess? That's Emily Dickinson. And so this poem, also, I don't know if anyone in the room, a little shout out to Karen Moore, who was an excellent and formative English teacher at Wheeling Park High School. This poem is called English AP. My feet on the book rack, under the desk, under a wide-necked kid who holds on to numbers and dumbbells in his annals. We exist to each other. I have no idea what a tippet is. It's become clear the pin oak I dialogue with from my bathroom window is allegorical. It holds on to its dead in the same way I thought I needed to keep my mother's body, not ironically, in a spare room. Mrs. Moore is talking about mortality and grief. I never bought the whole burial imagery, I guess. Taxidermy is a better perspective. At that point, hollowing out becomes personification. We don't have to follow food anymore, so why not advance the plot? We could have dead rooms for the preservation of families. Wait, too late. Thanks to Hitchcock, who abused the whole mother apostrophe. Now it just seems silly. It's not my bathroom. It's some exposition to establish myself. Space would become an issue, but then it already has. I'm supposed to be thinking about dead Emily Dickinson, exhausting, and M-dashes. Talk about holding on. The energy I give to fighting with Emily is vulgar. I assumed M-dashes were Emily's namesake rather than a practical function of print. M-dashes and Emily, a story we tell about a story she told herself. I'm teetering, swept into an attic, a shop-worn space for weird dead moms' dolls. It's me, though, lying in an awful shawl. It's my mouth, the long, flat line, trying to hold on to something, like the branches of the pin oak. This metaphor signifies buildings Roman. The whole pass is a hunk of driftwood. In the bathroom stall, hyperventilating, I wonder about Mr. Whipple's backstory. What made him so averse to squeezing softness? In this poem, I know you'll recognize the author of this excerpt. Sighed Maisie, a lazy bird hatching an egg. I'm tired and I'm bored and I've kinks in my leg from sitting, just sitting here day after day. It's work, how I hate it. I'd much rather play. I'd take a vacation, fly out for a rest, if I could find someone to stay on my nest. If I could find someone, I'd fly away free. Then Horton, the elephant, passed by her tree. Hello, called the lazy bird, smiling her best. You've nothing to do, and I do need a rest. Would you like to sit on the egg in my nest? Me on your egg? Why, that doesn't make sense. Your egg is so small, ma'am, and I'm so immense. That is Dr. Seuss, yeah. So this poem doesn't really make a heck of a lot of sense. I probably should have put a little epigraph in there, but I was fearful the poetry gods would ban me from poetry forever if I put an epigraph from Dr. Seuss in there. So, but at any rate, this poem, I wasn't a big Dr. Seuss fan as a kid, but I loved the Horton books. And I remember that story particularly because it reversed gender roles. And that was something that even as a little girl, somehow I became aware of. And the only other thing to know about this poem is it came after a time when everybody in my household, my husband, my son, we were all sick, really, really sick, all at the same time. And so I was thinking a lot about, gee, how do I care for others when I can't even care for myself? So this poem is called Flu Z Sun. Maisie, I think about you often in certain sicko hazes, on a red-eye to Vegas with a bald eagle at a farmer's market in Fresno with some pawing old hawk, or alone south of the border bartending in some beach shack long for a sea cure. There has to be an excuse for you. This has to be bird flu. See, I gutted the pillows, thereby creating conditions to attend to. Someone must tend, be tender. Who doesn't love Horton, his Hippocratic trunk, his feet like the white tails of deer, his eyes like the underside of a turtle's neck? To be sick is to be under attack, my stomach caught in the aftermath of a live plucking. The aftermath is always most sickening. I'm fevered, and presently, fever vocabulary is grossly rudimentary. Maybe, Maisie, vocabulary is too clumsy for you. Not Horton, who is himself a little clunky. Horton portends, Maisie, while you are a pretender, while you plan a masquerade, a black and white ball, in the manner of Truman Capote's before his own illness descended. Perhaps someone like Marianne Moore, known for linguistic precision, will show up with words for a cure or step-by-step instructions for whimsical mask-making. I'm fond of the word perhaps. Perhaps is a sickness. There's no separating the malady, the cure, the care. I noticed your bags packed, and I have gathered feathers. Let me know how the party goes, how you see yourself. I'll be sweating it out in this swan bevy. I hear Horton cracking eggs. Soon his trunk will be pressed to the fever. So this, I'm going to excerpt a few snippets from a longer poem. Let's see if anyone can recall who this poet might be. This poem is titled Parties, a Hymn of Hate. I hate parties. They bring out the worst in me. There is the novelty affair given by the woman who is awfully clever at that sort of thing. Everybody must come in fancy dress. The hostess introduces a series of clean home games. Each participant is given a fair chance to guess the number of seeds in a cucumber or thread a needle against time. You have to tell the hostess that it's a riot, and she says she'll just die if you don't come to her next party. If only she offered guarantees. Then there is the Bridge Festival. The winner is awarded an arts and crafts hearth brush. You cut for partners and draw the man who wrote the game. He won't let bygones be bygones. After each hand, he starts getting personal about your motives in leading clubs. There is the day in the country. It seems more like a week. The party gets a nice early start because everybody wants to make a long day of it. They get their wish. Everyone contributes a basket of lunch. Each person has it all figured out that no one else will think of bringing hard-boiled eggs. And there is the informal little dinner party, the lowest form of taking nourishment. The man on your left draws diagrams with a fork illustrating the way he's going to have a new sun parlor built on, and the one on your right explains how soon business conditions will better and why. When the more material part of the evening is over, you have your choice of listening to the Harry Lauder records or having the hostess hem you in and show you last summer's snapshots of the baby. Just before you break away, you mutter something to the host and hostess about sometime soon you must have them over your dead body. I hate parties. They bring out the worst in me. Anyone know that poet? Yes, Dorothy Parker, yes. So this is my homage to Dorothy Parker. It's called Small Talk. I feel the same way about small talk. It's been the same conversation since it's been hot enough to keep cool enough to be happy to be here. How are those kids or causes, their balls and trophies, their internships and scholarships and friendships and ships? Futures all tucked in and rich. How was that country where you stayed, where you thought your life would change, where you prayed with elephants, played bongos with baboons, where you thought you'd figure out how you were made for a bigger stage? Still got that dog, cat, mother rash? Oh God, I love your hat. Yeah, no, we should definitely hang out like boobs from a tube top at a bonfire out Fish Creek. But it's hard to say how long we might be hanging there, me exposed for my lack of care. And I know we should care, grease the teeth time to time. What's that? Dentist says you need a crown? And we, a little bridge, gets us here to what? Yeah, no, so it is the same conversation. It really was something, that storm last week. Sure, pour another round, put one of those little swords in my drink, and keep wet our buxom, juggling lips that buoy us, bind us, brand us. Human. Human is all. Let's see if anyone recognizes this. I live in New York, and I was thinking about the lagoon in Central Park, down near Central Park South. I was wondering if it would be frozen over when I got home, and if it was, where did the ducks go? I was wondering where the ducks went. When the lagoon got all icy and frozen over, I wondered if some guy came in a truck and took them away to a zoo or something, or if they just flew away. I'm lucky, though. I could shoot the old bull with old Spencer and think about those ducks at the same time. It's funny. You don't have to think too hard when you talk to a teacher. Yes, Catcher in the Rye, Salinger. So this poem, actually, I worked at the Schrader Environmental Education Center on weekends, if anybody knows the Schrader Center. And I loved working there, mostly because there was just a lot of downtime. And so I wrote all that time. And I found something about that environment very conducive to writing. So one day when I showed up for work to unlock the building, someone had laid 2 dead birds, cardinals, a male and a female, on an overturned bucket right outside the front door. And as I was unlocking, I noticed the birds, and then there was this family that was waiting to come into the center. So this poem is called Dead Birds on a Bucket. To ask about love is to fish barehanded. Noodling, they say in the South. Little boy lost in hand knits points at the still bluegill. Look, big fishy. As far as he knows, he loves the fish, the fake rocks, the algae. Little girl, tutu and pink boots, swallowing her knees, looks like an artificial fly. Mother says, oh my. Daddy says, where's the daddy? Fly girl sits down, takes off one boot, and says, but the mommy is alone. Is that her home? As far as she knows, she's in love with her pink toes. Thing is, I don't want to talk about love. My heart is pruning. Someone laid 2 dead cardinals by the door. Daddy says, don't touch. Boy and girl open their gills, press their eyes against the glass, and look like, why? How sweet. How sweet it is, all the ways we lure and preserve. And just really quickly, I'll finish up this poem. Let's see if anyone recognizes this poet. It's called My Son, the Man. Suddenly, his shoulders got a lot wider, the way Houdini would expand his body while people were putting him in chains. It seems no time since I would help him to put on his sleeper, guide his calves into the gold interior, zip him up and toss him up and catch his weight. I cannot imagine him no longer a child. And I know I must get ready, get over my fear of men. Now my son is going to be one. This was not what I had in mind when he pressed up through me like a sealed trunk through the ice of the Hudson, snapped the padlock, unsnaked the chains, and appeared in my arms. Now he looks at me the way Houdini studied a box to learn the way out, then smiled and let himself be manacled. Anyone recognize that poet? That's Sharon Olds. So this poem is called Cauliflower Seeds. I have a packet of early snowball cauliflower seeds my son brought home from Lowe's for me. The rainbow, when should I start planting map, the nutrients and maintenance and care stuffed in his pocket for a week. Remember the game of life, those little pink and blue pegs? My cousin played so fast I never knew when my turn came. In the 80s, minivans replaced convertibles, and where I sit to listen to my cauliflower seeds is 1 floor above my hybrid SUV. When I rattle the cauliflower seeds my son picked out of the trash for me, I remember the poor farm where losers retired to philosophy. Originally, to win was to reach happy old age. In the 90s, they removed spaces that forced you to go back. But when the seeds sing inside their bright foil sleeve, I am a plastic peg laying on the checkered track across from the bank and square one, originally called infancy. And finally, to honor this wonderful library where we are gathered today, I will finish up with this poem called Used Book Sale. Once a year, for $1, I fill a box with books in the basement of the Ohio County Public Library. It makes me think most people are at war with themselves most of the time, and at the same time, people the world over still kill other people. Kill people they see, people they've never seen or won't ever see. It makes no difference how many books I buy for how many bucks. Aren't people funny? People love enough to open words surgically, to labor and deliver words, to lay them, their puce, waxy skin, on the bare chests of strangers. There is no way to weigh love nestling such. And at the same time, people hate enough, want so much. They take bodies, take and take. It's no bother to fill boxes with bodies, to tell a tired tale, antic and archived, age after age. But I don't say thank you to Barb, a friend of the library's, who smiles and slides my buck into an I Heart Big Books pouch. Most of the time, thank you doesn't occur to me. All of these basement books and boxes and bucks and bodies from hand to hand to hand, well, thank you seems a heart-shaped bullet, a soggy bottom box, a super dollar, a stained page too brittle to survive, a warm, unfeigned but confounded finger tracing its decal edge, the way I might trace my sleeping lover's clavicle, the RSVP of the skeleton, if you will, the most intimate protrusion, the most voiceless bone. What words are worth, I still don't know. Thanks for listening.
Oh, thanks, CJ. That was terrific. Weren't those fun? That's great fun. And I'm terrible at guessing, but they were all very good. Thank you, CJ. Frank and I have known of each other forever and known each other pretty good long time, too. We both come out of the writing program at the University of Pittsburgh and share many, many friends. Frank is a poet, an award-winning book designer, folk artist, and playwright from Pittsburgh. His poetry has appeared in diverse periodicals, and that's being a little too humble, and his plays have been staged in Pittsburgh and New York City. His full-length collection of poems, just out, Mrs. Nussbaum's Monkey, is published by Bottom Dog Press, Larry Smith's labor of love that's been producing superb books for years and years and years now. There's a poem of Frank's from his new collection called All the Wrong Things, and hopefully he'll read it again, but I'm going to read it now. The winds must be right. I hear the roar from the airport 10 miles to the west, people going somewhere to do something that can't be done here, where the dog rests his head on his stuffed lion in peace. I am baptized in the holy lick of many leaves. The newspaper just landed with a smack. What it wants me to know is too little now. A school bus stands and waits. Sleepy-headed kids file in and drop bright backpack burdens on torn leather seats and push into the half-light, hopeful not to be taught all the wrong things. As you can tell, these are poems of both music and thoughtfulness, and it's a real pleasure to welcome Frank here to the Wheeling Poetry Series. Frank Lehner.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm a little emotional, actually. So many good people have been in this room, so many good writers, CJ, and let me just start from there. Thank you for coming. Quit looking at me, you're going to make me cry. No. This first poem is called Lectio Divina, and it's in your program, and it means divine reading. And I had put this to the beginning of the book, hoping that would be it means it's a four-step process, to read, to reflect, to respond, and to rest. And I guess many of you Christians would know that. But anyway, Lectio Divina. The world has become screaming green. Giddy flower turns petal to hand. Breeze loops ear and chin with kisses. The hummingbird snapshots still then not. Squirrel lies and chews with the crow. We've set out the porch furniture. Sister, here's a chair, a coffee, and a sweet. All right, so we'll go from the holy to the sexual. How about that? And everybody likes that. And the temptress and the lust. It's called She My Eye Blue, and anybody following along, it's on page 69. Tucked in the morning wet snow blanket, a lone tulip pushes her red face to the sun. She wore the white shimmer as a crown and winked when she saw me smile at her. Soft green dress hugged sleek along her curve, so I stopped and stooped and lay my fingers lightly on her cheek. She turned her head and exhaled, and we said nothing but quiet. The squirrel and the laurel paid us no heed, nor did the Sorko girl huffing to make mass, her shiny scarf fluttering behind to catch up. When she finally spoke in rich tulip Dutch, I had no choice but to turn myself over for her. When she curled a lip, I heard, "Take me home." I slid my left hand into the deep loam, let my roots tangle and slide lovely with hers. My lids turned petal silk, and she my eyes blue. So, wild sex on the hill in front of my house. With a tulip, but, wherever, however. And this poem is because of Mark Harshman. It's for him and to him, but it's really because of him. I was reading some of his work, and his work is so luscious and pastoral and terrifying and earthy, and it's just a fabulous writer. And I was reading him, and this is what happened. It's, on page 17 of the book, if anyone's following, to come unsatisfied. To come unsatisfied. The fire-purple butterfly bush hallelujahs with joy. In her late July wonder of nectar, she waits for the sun to lift just high enough to warm the air, stir the monarchs from their folded limb slumber, and flock to the church of her flaming Sunday bounty. Our groundhog has become so petulant, he refuses anything but the stickiest of pumpkin or zucchini flowers. The dog is curled and splayed on the plush blanket bed, his hips more stiff by the week, and he deep eyes me, unsure why the leap to the car is no longer seamless. I have a scar on my left wrist from a pickle jar that shattered. On my right, a ghost of sutures and a gash from punching a mirror, one innocent and perchance the other small and of fear. Sometimes I feel as if my heart has had enough and will tear open my chest and rake in the whole bowl of this valley. She's had enough of hesitancy and sing-songing her message. No more participation trophies. She wants what she wants, and she wants the want that words I want to come unsatisfied. How to catch the smell of a broken tomato stem to her without a tongue. A hummingbird sways on the cornflower, beak lost in her crown. A yellow finch has her way with the seeding grass. I would call that delight. The bumblebee on my forearm offers a powdery gold tattoo of her journey. Yeah. See what Mark Harshman did? See what he cost? All right. I'm going to take you, speak into the speaker. Okay. I didn't want to feed back because I'm so loud. All right. I'm going to take you up to Mount Washington in Pittsburgh, my stomping grounds. This is called Thin Silence. And it's on page 29, and it's about a guy named Jimmy Songe, but it's S-A-N-G-E, but we called him Jimmy Sang, because that's how we were. Jimmy Sang came home from the war with half a heroin addiction and a Vietnamese wife. Father Pat understood the urgency of Jimmy's situation. Pat returned in like shape after ministering to boys who found the moment too far from Iowa fields or Pittsburgh mills. There, God was of no use. but the deep, sweet dream of opium opened him to lay hands in good faith on the heads and shoulder of stone-faced kids no excuse a flag can excuse. Pat took Jimmy to the park and they tossed ball and let the dirt, breeze, throw and catch, unfurl the tangled knots of rifle and sin. And between these two men, almost without words, Jimmy's eyes came clear, and Pat ever certain that host and wine were best for the less guiltless. Father Pat passed when he was 77. Jimmy Sang made way to college and worked. Jimmy Sang made way to work that ministered and cured animals of ails and served the deep-eyed love nubs of man to beast. Jimmy's wife, Faye, brought to the potlucks of the time her noodles and mixed meat bowls, carrying names no one could pronounce or remember, but remembered her deep, long smile. Poetry in the days when the neighborhood held hands. We sang songs tiny with words. Come to Pittsburgh. I'll take you to Skookum Field. We'll stand between the lime lines. I'll show you the bent foul pole. I'll show you how close we are here to the clouds beyond. There's too much this to leave. Jimmy Sang was a lucky one. Henry Johns, not so much. I'll show you our rivers. I'll teach you our verses. We'll warble, and I'll show you the thin silence between not and now. I'll fill your sacks with cold stones. I'll give you a monkey ball. If Saturday, a Little League game starts at 1 p.m., we'll have a couple of dogs and a Pepsi-Cola. There's a bronze of Father Pat in the dugout. Let's touch his cheek. Let's sit on the oak bench. Oh, rude to cry at your own work. Thank you. I'm going to skip that one. Here's one for, we had Mark, and here's one for Tim Russell. And I'm sure many of you know Tim out of Toronto, Ohio, out of the writing program at Pitt, and just a great, great poet who's left us too soon. It's called Small Picnic, page 40, to Tim Russell. You may have seen the cook dancing in front of his silver pots as the tug churns its way up the dark Ohio. You may have been face to face with the small brown bird graced with gray speckles as sweet Violet mounted her tin can stilts. You may have had mixed feelings as the Memorial Day singers coveted yellow ribbons and sang America the Beautiful. Then again, you may never have been to Toronto, Ohio, never have witnessed the watery spine of 400 communities lap light from the hump moon on its rock banks. You may never see the unloved white dog condemned to his short leash. You may never touch the painted war memorial or walk to Yummy's for a double chocolate cone. But certainly you can understand how a man can sit in shadow on his cool porch content, how a trailer court can erupt in the heart of a small city, how the black state high jump champion can go unrecognized. America is so full of beauty and indignity. I'm full of hamburgers and beer. The health care and greed issues remain unresolved. And after the candles are extinguished, the cans rinsed for recycling, the hands shaken, can you appreciate the 50-mile drive back to Pittsburgh, where you too may never have been, drifts by as effortlessly as eyes rolling to sleep? Thank you, Timmy. All right. This is the title poem of the book, Mrs. Nussbaum's Monkey. And yes, it's true and real. Page 105. Mrs. Nussbaum's Monkey. Yeah, it's a prose poem, I guess. I don't know why Mrs. Nussbaum had a monkey, but she did. She lived in a one-story white brick house with a mammoth picture window with a drape rarely drawn. That open space was a magnet for all who passed to gawk, and there they saw in the dining room the silver-caged, the long-tailed monkey Jessers, who was like Mr. Longo's Dachshund and the Hoffman's bunny, who was like I can't say Dachshund, That open space, a magnet for all those who passed and gawked there. They saw in the dining room the silver cage and the long-tailed monkey's Jessers, who was like Mr. Longo's dachshund and the Hoffman's bunnies. Wow. Jessers, after the morning sun pushed south over the roof, would be on the porch between two painted rocking chairs, the rails of his confines almost invisible, the face of the street, and face the street cheap and reach through the bars with his hands. Jessers had a thin head and a long nose like Jimmy Durante, and light green eyes with blackish circles. He was the size of a football. He looked like a little monkey person, like everyone else, and was a little something one way or the other. Jessers was mostly grumpy, and for all the want to have Jessers as a chum, he'd claw the hand who dared touch his leathery finger, and the little gentleman bit me once too often. Hey, but we tried. Jessers was also a sneaky fellow, and Mrs. Nussbaum's eye not so watchful. So it was not unusual for Jessers to be up the telephone pole or sitting on the roof of a car or monkey walking down Augusta Street, maybe to head to the 500 block to pinch some eggs from Minster's chickens, or through the backyards of Edith Street and the O'Connor's fountain to the flock of goldfish they kept. Jessers was decidedly less grumpy when he was out and about. For the most part, Jessers hung out while we played and talked kid stuff, until somehow he went home to his cage and the lure of imported fruit, kind of the way we all went home when the street lights came on. If something was missing, or a tool or a toy, the first thing you did was head to Nussbaum's to see if the thieving Jessers had taken what was missing. Jessers was still there when I left for college, but this is all background, just so you know. I guess this was an evening when Jessers couldn't sleep or was rambunctious or Mrs. Nussbaum had one too many highballs. I slept in the third floor attic, but our house was paper thin and I could hear talking. No one was ever up this late in our house, but I heard talk and cheep. So I headed down the stairs, tippy-toe quiet, desperate not to have a stair squeak, to the kitchen in my pajamas and bare feet. There, my father in his chair, a two-tone 50s Formica chrome leg table, and Jessers on the back of the chair facing the stove. Pops had laid out a little spread of Velveeta cheese, sweet pickles, and saltines. He opened a stubby bottle of Pilsner and poured Jessers a little piece. Pops never said much, but there he was in his T-shirt and loose boxers, telling Jessers about the Easter Tuesday night he lost his mother and taking the streetcar to go to work because there was nothing to do till the next day, and the plant owner only gave 2 days off for death. I recognized the voice. It was like the voice that told me stories of playing ball, or how to thread a worm on a hook, or how to hold the soldering iron at the angle just to kiss the flux and let the metal hug the wire. I sat on the bottom step, out of sight, and listened. Jessers breathed and called and growled from his tiny heart. Jessers like cheese, the same combination, sans the beer for me. Dad and I ate coming home from the Saturday night hockey games and sitting down to watch chiller theater and the monsters and sci-fi flicks of life run amok in some other way, where man and beast rarely found table in conversation. Maybe I missed Jessers' story of transit from Zanzibar or New Guinea, in his maw roiling in despair, her little monkey gone, her spirit flattened. I'm not sure who teared up first, but I dare peek around the threshold, and Jessers is holding Dad's first 2 fingers and thumb. Jessers' eyes are wet, and Dad's left hand is wiping an eye. 2 men alone together and safe before the lights come on and all that's expected of that. I've loved Jessers from that moment until now. Dad gave Jessers a little scratch on the head and a nod, and Jessers monkeyed up Dad's arm and out the window. Come on, Frankie, that's enough for tonight. Time for bed. His hand on my crew-cut head, the plate empty. Sorry for monkeying and beginning it up. Okay, lastly, this is the closing poem in the book, and it's called "Made Me Cry." And if Anyway, it made me cry. I rang my buddy Rippin to catch up. I've known him for some 40 years. Chrissy O'Neill and I blew him up once, 2 cigarette loads in the Cathedral of Learning in the early 80s. He was teaching Plath. I wore a leather bomber's jacket and flitted with Frank O'Hara, mooning bad over Cynthia Genser and our Pittsburgh nights when you could take a few beers to the 3 brick stacks of the rolling mill, watch the mist fire red and yellow and swirl on the hood of Herf's blue Pontiac. He soon went many-voice mad, and Rogue first fell to the Rosicrucians, and now horribly blind to Trump and the Christ of hate, snapping when we last spoke, "I love you, my brother. You're headed to hell eternal. I'll pray for you." Kevin answered, we picked up as we do. "Unks," he cheered. "I wrote a poem last night so beautiful it made me cry." I could hear the tear in his voice and whispered, "I understand." Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, CJ. We have time. Are there questions for either of our poets today? Feel free. How they write, where they write, anything.
If anybody has a question or comment, just let me know. I'll come around with the mic.
As a writer, as a writer, well, to be honest, I have this thing called Bad Poem Sunday. And over the last couple years, I make time on Sunday morning. Nance goes and does horse stuff on Sunday morning. I'm left alone, so I go upstairs before much gets on and try to write something on Sunday morning that I get pretty well done, and then I come back to it and flesh it out. So sometimes it's bad poetry Saturdays, bad poetry Sunday, and so that's that. And I want to thank Phyllis Siegel, because she's partly responsible for this book, because when I write it, she's sort of an accountability person, and I send her, and she has to deal with it Sunday morning probably before she's had her coffee. But if she wasn't there, I might not be as bad poem-y Sunday as I might be. So.
Writing as you would, each day for a period of time. And then after the book came out, I find with creativity, I think it's kind of like you fill, and then all of that goes out. And then I usually have a period where I kind of walk away a little bit and let things kind of refill. But during those lulls, I think you're always kind of writing. You're always making notes. I have journals all over the place. So I'm always capturing scraps and snippets and pieces, and then, so that's kind of how it works for me.
This is for Frank. Frank, you're in the poem. I'm waiting.
Yeah.
So I love the line because it relates, and that is, I am waiting in the Sunday quiet before the leaf blowers and lawnmowers ruin everything. When I was growing up, nobody made any noise on Sunday on my block, like nobody. But I noticed that when I got out of the service and I would go back to visit my mom, so several years had passed, and now occasionally she lived in a trailer court at this time after I got out of the service, and occasionally people would mow on a Sunday. And she really got upset by that, you know, and they never heard her, but she would really give them a verbal beating because they were running their mower or doing, weed whacking. And it's funny because when I would think about that, and I would think about being a kid when that just didn't happen. It's like there was this unwritten law that nobody does anything noisy on a Sunday. You know, they didn't have to be churchgoers, they didn't have to be necessarily Christian or whatever, but they didn't make noise. And then when I read that line in there, I'm going, oh yeah, that's perfect. So anyway, thanks for that.
You're welcome, and it's true, especially holidays too, people would do that, you know, and not do that. And I think these leaf blowers or sort of like the small talk that CJ was talking about. You know, there's nothing else to do, so let's go blow. You know, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, or at dinner time, we have a neighbor that'll blow. You're sitting down to eat dinner, and he's out there blowing. He's blowing the blow. So, yeah.
Any other questions or comments for our poets?
Someone you're reading in the last few months that's new to you and you're excited about.
I'm not sure they're really new to me, but I'm always on the nightstander, Mary Ruffel and Diane Seuss. And I will say, I've been reading Nancy Krogowski, who is a mad woman and a Pittsburgh poet, and I think she's just fantastic. And she was new to me, and I've really been enjoying her work.
I mean, you gave me a book the other day, and I can't remember the guy's name. A Pitt poet. He's dead. Okay, but the other, I've been gone back to Lee Young Lee recently, and Lee and I went to school together, but his work is really Dean Young. Yeah, there's another, so I would check him out. But Lee's work has captivated me both for sort of his take on the Indonesian violence that goes on in his life, but also the spiritual and existential and holy. So Lee Young Lee and Dean Young. Yeah.
Again, thank you so much, both of you.